So, a new chapter started in my life. One with my then boyfriend, Johnny, or Gregorion. We were together for a long time. We started living in the capital where he was studying. Then I got into school and we moved to another apartment. Then things were a little bit fast-paced. We lived beyond our means. We drove all over the place. We never had any money put aside. We went out to eat a lot. But I became more isolated. I became more homebodied. And I don't know if that was willingly or subconsciously, but looking back, there were signs that told me that maybe this wasn't the best relationship. I felt nice. I was in a relationship, I liked him, and I felt good. Mostly. He decided to go to school in another city, or another town, on the north side of the country. So we moved. We moved into a student apartment in Akureyri. And he went to school, and I started working. I think I was in school a little bit, but not at the start. And things were up and down. I felt isolated. I didn't know anybody. I wanted to go back home to the capital where my family was. But he wanted to be in school, and well, at that point we were actually engaged. And at one point I took my ring off and threw it at him and stormed out of the apartment. But I had nowhere to go. The car was his, the apartment was his, well, in his name. And after cooling off and walking up and down the stairs for a while, I just came back. It's a while ago, so I don't remember it exactly, but it was rough. I felt alone. So, yeah. He was constantly in school, and has always been and still is in school. But we found out, well, we'll get there later. I decided to go back to school. I wanted to study to be a chef or a baker or something like that, so I went into the culinary line of a school in town. And I felt good, it was nice. But mid first semester, I found out I was pregnant with my oldest. And something changed in my head. I've always loved children. I've always wanted a lot of children. And now I was becoming a mom. The pregnancy was easy. I had the normal morning sickness and back pains. But I kept going. And in April of 2010, my oldest was born. Garðar, named after his grandfather. My oldest changed my view of the world completely. It was no longer me and my boyfriend. It was me, our child, and my boyfriend. My top priority became my child. Before it used to be my boyfriend. 2 months after our oldest was born, we got married. Courthouse ceremony, my parents were present, then we went out to eat. A month after the wedding, we had a wedding celebration, a wedding party at my then husband's hometown, where we invited our family, but it wasn't as I wanted it. The guest list was not ours. My ex-mother-in-law sort of took over the guest list. We didn't invite friends because we needed to invite family that we didn't know on his side. I invited the family I wanted, but I wanted my best friend to be there, but see, we needed to cut her out because we needed to invite more family from his side that I'd never met. But see, my ex-mother-in-law was paying for it mostly, so I gave in. I was becoming a doormat again, like I'd been when I was younger. Then life kept going. We had a child, and my then husband was still in school, and the most of the upbringing was on me. I worked a little bit, and the kid went to like a daycare. Then my then husband decided to go to school in the capital, so we moved. We picked everything up and we moved to Keflavik, a town about 20 minutes from the capital, and he went to school in the capital. I decided to go to school as well and study to become assistant nurse. And I met a lot of people while I was studying there. I made friends there. Not a friendship that lasted, but friends that I was going out of the house and I was meeting people. There were incidents at that time that looking back, were red flags. And I should have seen them, but I didn't. At my last year in assistant nurse, I found out I was pregnant again with my second. And a month after my graduation, where I graduated with my assistant nurse degree and a white cap as a college degree, I gave birth to my second son in June of 2013, and we named him Brynjar, after my best friend. He was a wild child. He was excessively active and hyper, even when I was pregnant with him. So, when he was born, he was not gonna get easier. And my then husband was still focused on school. So now I was taking care of 2 children, the house, and everything. Mostly standing alone. He was there, but he was the fun parent. He did the play around while I was the discipline. Not long after... yeah. It happened quickly that I got pregnant with my third one. And my third son was born in 2015. He does not want me to give out his name at this given moment, so we'll keep it at that for now. But before he was born, my then husband got another job on the complete opposite side of the country. So we packed up and we moved in the middle of winter just before Christmas. That was a stress. We had weather damage to our new apartment. The car couldn't go because of the weather. The car nearly blew off. The tires of the car, of the moving van, popped or something while my husband was driving the car to the East Coast. So much happened that should have been screaming warnings. You are doing the wrong thing by moving to the other side of the country. But we did. And in February of 2015, my third son was born. That pregnancy was hard, and I was so glad when he was born. But we lived in an apartment that was not suitable for living. One bedroom was completely inhabitable because a window had blown in a storm before Christmas. The children's bedroom was not really usable because the window there had cracked during the same storm. There was water damage and silverfish in the bathroom. Only 2 stovetops worked out of the 4. And if you turned on 3, the power cut out. So we decided we needed a new place. And when we decided we needed a new place, we found out that the owner of the house was losing it. So basically, we would have had to move either way because the house was being sold. So we moved to a town just a couple of minutes away. Closer to where my then husband was working. I took my maternity leave and got settled in the new house. Yeah. And life went on. So, me and my then husband lived on the east coast of Iceland for a little while. He was working as a truck driver, and after my maternity leave, I went to work in the preschool the kids were in. I met a lot of friends and started to go out. My husband took up a little bit of a teaching job in a town over. But I wasn't getting a steady hire. I was getting like 3 months contract, 3 months contract, 3 months contract. They didn't want to give me a steady job, even though they kept saying, you will still get the job. You have the job. We're not going to fire you. And he was not getting a permanent hire at the school. So for some odd reasons, we decided to move to my old hometown, where I grew up. Mostly because there was a job there for me as an assistant nurse at the small hospital in town. And he was a driver. He could work from anywhere as long as they had a truck for him. So we moved. And not just moved, my parents bought a house in my old hometown that we moved in. It was an old house, had some dents and stuff that needed to be fixed, but it was a house and it was cheap. Perfect. At least living wise. Family life was harder. I started to notice that when my then husband was away for work for 2 weeks, the home was calmer. The kids were calmer, I was calmer, and the house was more in order. When he came home on the weekends, things got chaotic. Kids got rowdy. And he would sit on the couch. And then we would repeat. He would go to work, calm down. He came home, things went cray-cray. I was working nights, weekends, evenings. The kids were in schools and preschools. And I was tired. At that point, I was looking up divorce. I was looking at the paperwork needed to be filed for a divorce. I thought that it was time, this wasn't working. The life was better when he was not at home than when he was at home. So I was looking at divorce papers and talking to some friends online about steps I could take. I then found out I was pregnant with our fourth. So I put the divorce papers on hold because I thought maybe this child, he'll change. He'll be more of a dad, he'll be more present, he'll help more. I decided to go into nursing school. But to do that, we had to move to Akureyri again. So we did. I resigned my job. We got a student apartment through the university and we moved. Packed everything up and got a nice apartment. That was 2018. I don't look fondly at that. June that year, I lost my grandfather, my maternal grandfather. On my wedding anniversary, by the way. In September, things went bad. It was 10th of September. I had a maternity massage at a salon. And it was weird. Because a couple of days before, I hadn't really felt any movement. I was due in October, so I knew at that time it's move less because they have less space. But this was not like normal. And in the massage appointment, there were no response from my unborn. And knowing myself and him, couldn't touch my back without him doing backflips. With a full half an hour of back massage and he didn't move once. I went to the hospital, to the maternity ward, and I said I had a bad feeling. I wasn't feeling movements. The nurses took me into a room and they put on the ultrasound, my stomach. And for a good 5-10 minutes, rolling it around and not saying anything. This was my fourth pregnancy and I was looking. At one point, she turned off the screen I could see. And she kept looking. She got up and excused herself and said she needed to get the doctor. Doctor came back. For a couple of minutes, he looked with the ultrasound. The midwife nurse went to stand beside me, and the doctor told me, "We can't see a heartbeat. We have looked thoroughly, and we can't find the heartbeat." On the 10th of September, I was informed that my unborn son had died in utero. And I went onto autopilot. They escorted me into a private room where I called my mom. I don't remember what I said, but I just said he was gone. I then called my husband, told him the same. He was at work, so it would take him a while to get back. My mom talked to her boss and got some time off and was on the next plane from the capital to be with us. The nurse came a little bit later, told me I could go home, get things ready, and I should be at the hospital next morning for induction. I went home and I started knitting. I had been working on a blanket like I had done for all my children. I knitted a going home blanket. So I went home and I started knitting. Because, by God, I was gonna finish this blanket before I had to give birth to him. Next, my husband came home and it was just quiet. He didn't say much to our older boys. My mom came in the evening and she was with my boys, mostly. My husband's parents also came later. The morning after, on the 11th of September of 2018, I went to the hospital to be induced. It took 2 days. The 13th of September, I gave birth to my fourth son. And when I got him in my arms, all I could say is just please cry. Please, for the love of everything, just cry. There was no sound. Got a lot of pictures of him. We got a time with him because the hospital had a cooling basket. Donation from a charity in Iceland that helps families that lose children in utero or shortly after birth. They give each family that loses a child a box, collect memorabilia, handprints, lock of hair, a necklace or a bracelet that carry the flower Forget-Me-Nots. The name of the charity is actually Forget-Me-Nots. After the birth, there was a long time of preparation, grief. We had a funeral service for him, and then his little casket was sent to the capital for cremation. Then we got his little ash urn sent home, or it was sent to the mortuary in the town we lived in, and we picked it up. And he was then buried between my grandparents in my old hometown. I was still just on autopilot. I woke up, I took my kids to the right places, I went home, and I was on the computer. I was still supposed to be going to school. I was still registered in nursing classes, but I didn't go to school. I completely not attended. But just before the exams, I felt someone push me. And that was the first time I dropped out of autopilot. And I started studying. And And I studied like there was no tomorrow. I watched the entire semester worth of lectures so I could pass my tests. All while not functioning properly because there was a person missing. There should be a giggling little baby next to me while I was doing all of this. Then came the Christmas of 2008. I did not want to be home on the Christmas of 2008. The home where we were supposed to have 4 children amazed by the Christmas tree and the lights. So we joined my parents for a cabin out in the middle of nowhere. And it felt so good because we weren't in our home where we lost our child. Or at least I felt good. Christmas Day come and I had to call my then husband, tell him he needed to come because dinner was soon. He wasn't even dressed. And he was still in our cabin doing God knows what. And when he came back, when he came to the cabin where my parents were, we had dinner and the plan was to open all the gifts. But for some reason, his response was, maybe we should go back to our cabin and open our gifts tomorrow. No. The whole point of doing this was to spend the Christmas as much with family as possible. So we opened the gifts with family, and after that we headed back to our cabin where I put the kids to bed. Asked my then husband if we should go into the hot tub to look at the northern lights and just soak and relax. He did not want to join, so I grabbed a couple of beers, went into the hot tub and rethought my life. That was the turning point in my head that my marriage was done. So I sat alone in the hot tub, watched the northern lights, drank a couple of beers and rethought my future. And on the New Year's of 2018-2019, me and my then husband had the conversation of, I want out. I am filing for a divorce. I can't do it anymore. By February 2019, he had moved out of the student apartment we were in. And by July that year, we were officially divorced. Life changes. Losing my 4th child opened up my eyes that my marriage hadn't been right for years, but I'd just been pulling the blinds, looking the other way. A child won't fix a person. A child won't change them. If they didn't change with the first one, they won't change with the second one, or the third one, or the 4th one. My ex was who he was because he had his own problems he needed to work out, but he was unwilling to see them. Today he's in a much better place and has another wife who makes him happy. We did not work as a couple, but we worked perfectly fine as friends and co-parents. But that was a turning point in my life. Divorcing my ex and looking to a new future.